Well, one of the invitations that I've made a number of times on this podcast is for guys to reach out to me and just have an introductory Zoom conversation. And I had a conversation with a guy recently who said this. He said, Vern, what would you say regarding starting a new relationship? What should I tell my new girlfriend? What should I say regarding my porn use? I had an experience with a previous relationship where I attempted to come clean and share things. It didn't go well. That relationship ended. And now I'm really feeling, a lot of fear and trepidation about starting another relationship because I just don't know what should I say. And should I even just say, should I say anything at all? So we had a great conversation. And so I wanted to do a podcast today and call it Dating Honesty. Why, when, and how. Welcome aboard.
Guys ready?
When it comes to porn, are you stuck, spinning out, or slipping backwards in your life? If so, then welcome to the Finding Traction podcast, a show dedicated to those who are looking to gain recovery momentum away from porn and toward the life and relationships they have always hoped for. Now, here's your host, Vern Tomke.
Well, let me say as we get into today's podcast, we are now about 2/3 of the way through August, and it really is a chance for people to make a new start in September. Oftentimes our summer holidays are over, we're starting school, or our kids are starting school, or we're back to university or college, or just we're going, you know what, fall is a great time to start something new. So I want to encourage you, first of all, to connect with me on the Circle Learning platform. It's just a great way to get a whole bunch of free resources, and also to consider joining a Finding Traction group. In the Finding Traction group, we work through the 52-week Finding Traction video series. You can watch the first couple for free on the Circle platform, so you can get a bit of a feel of it. Or you just want to say, who is this Vern guy? Maybe you're new to the podcast and you just want to connect with me over Zoom. It's a great way for you to ask some questions, like today's topic came out of a question out of a Zoom conversation. So if you want to reach out to me, I'd love to hear from you. My email is bandofbrothers.care@gmail.com. All right, well, let's get back to this question of dating honesty. Why, when, and how? Now, you probably figured out pretty much most of the listeners of this podcast are guys. And I recognize, of course, that watching porn is not exclusively a male thing. It's increasingly common among females as well, especially younger females, Gen X, Gen Z. But for the sake of this, I'm going to speak from a guy's perspective. You, let's say, have been involved. Maybe you were exposed early like I was, and you developed through your teenage years, early teenage, late teenage years, a whole embedded relationship with porn. And now you are maybe in your 20s or your 30s, and you are now wanting to start a relationship, but there's this big niggling question. What am I going to say about this porn relationship that I've been struggling with for my adolescence and into my 20s? What should I say? Should I say anything at all? Now, let me just start with a question around a why question. You are going to have to get over 3 really powerful reasons to not say anything. So I'm not trying to add to your reasons to not say anything, but let me give you 3 internal voices, 3 internal rationales or arguments that are immediately going to crop up that are going to want to keep you silent as long as humanly possible. Here is the first one. Why do I have to bring this stuff up before I met her? I'm not into looking back. I'm moving forward. For the Christians out there, doesn't it say something about not looking behind and pressing forward, so you can even spiritualize it? What does it matter anyways what I did before we met? Sounds good, right? Well, all of us, hopefully, who have a degree of self-awareness realize our past is a huge part of who we are today. You're not just, you weren't raised in a cabbage patch. You basically are very much an extension of your experiences, of the stories of your life, of how you were raised. And for you just to feel like you can turn a corner, flip a switch, and now simply move forward and it not be affected by your past is just crazy thinking. It's completely unrealistic. It's not healthy, and it shows no emotional awareness at all. So, first of all, the idea that why do I need to look back or talk about what I was like before? Can we talk about what is going, only about what's going forward? That would be a warning sign. And I would even say, for you guys out there, because most of the people listening, guys, if you are in a new relationship and your girlfriend doesn't want to talk anything about her life before she met you, I would also say that's a red flag. I would also say, Houston, we have a problem. I would also say there is somebody who's either not dealt with their background or even recognize how their background affects them today. So first of all, we're going to hopefully put that one aside. Here is the second one, and I know you've thought it. Why do I have to talk about things like my porn history, my porn use? Why do I have to do that? Because once I get married, it will no longer be an issue, right? Because I'm going to be able to have sex all the time, on demand, sex on tap, and life's going to be one long, lifelong orgasm. You're going, right? Isn't that the way it is? And the answer is, no, it's not. Your marriage will not change your desire, your embedded habits towards porn. Most guys, within 6 months, if you've had undealt porn use, these have been habitual patterns, within 6 months, it re-emerges in your life. And you go, well, why is that? Well, if you go back and look through the topics and you see, porn habit versus sex, porn, what is the name of that? It's either porn appetite versus sex appetite, or porn drive versus sex drive. It's an earlier podcast. Go back and look for it. You will see that your desire for porn has very little to do with sex. What you're doing with porn and what you have trained your body to do is to chase a feeling, to chase a medication, to chase a drug. It's an appetite for, it's like a drug, and that is not going to go away without you dealing with it in marriage. So that is why guys that get married who think that porn is going to go away, or their problematic, sexual patterns are going to go away, they are very surprised in an unpleasant way when they reemerge in their life. So I understand. I partly thought that. Almost every married guy I know thought that to some degree. So if you think, well, I don't have to talk about this. Why? Because this will no longer be an issue when I'm married. You can scratch that one off the list as well. And the third one, and I really understand the power behind this, and that is fear. If I bring this up, if I'm self-revealing, if I start talking about some of these things, I'm afraid it's going to kibosh. It's going to end the relationship. And so out of fear, I'm not going to talk about this because I think maybe my partner won't have grace for it or won't understand or won't be supportive, and it will end the relationship. And so I don't want to do that. I get that. But for all three of those reasons, whether or not you think you should only look forward, whether or not you think marriage is going to take away, is magically going to take this away, or whether or not you're afraid it will end the relationship, you still need, I'm telling you, you need to practice honesty in your relationship. So that is the why. Well, let's switch this for a second, talk a little bit about the when. I used to, work with youth a lot. I still teach high school. And if you ever read any books on relationships, you may have heard the phrase DTR, define the relationship. And what it really is talking about is relationships have different stages. And it's important as you go through a relationship that you and your partner are on the same page. If you've defined the relationship differently, one partner thinks it's this level, and the other partner thinks it's a different level, that relationship is going to run into problems. So they talk about you needing to continually define and redefine the relationship. So let me just give you some simple steps in the relationship, and then we're going to talk about how honesty around our porn use or other habits, how that fits into it. So the first step, we're just going to call it playing the field. And in that situation, you're talking to lots of girls, you're meeting different girls, and the understanding is really clear. You know what? We're just having a good time. We may be going out for dates, and I might go out with you this week. I might go out with somebody else next week. I'm continuing to swipe, left, or I forget it's left or right. I met my wife before dating apps, so forgive me. But I'm continuing. This is just part of an exploratory thing, right? And that is one level of the relationship. The next level, and these are just really broad levels, would be something where we would call exclusive. And in that level, you're saying, you know what? I am going to devote my energies to developing a relationship with you. And I'm going to give this relationship an honest chance to see where it goes. So let's say I'm on a dating app. I'm going to end that relationship, continuing to date or check out other women or, that kind of thing. And so at that point, however you get there, you both decide, okay, we are going to focus this relationship on each other and see where it goes. Okay, we're going to call that exclusive. The next level of the relationship, we're going to call serious. And by serious, it's just a continuation of the second stage. And in serious, what you would say is, okay, we're going to begin to ask each other questions. We're going to begin to explore our compatibility in a more serious way. I think there's a John Gottman book called 7 or 8 Dates. We're going to begin to ask each other questions. We're still not, signing on the dotted line. Either one of us at any point might say, okay, I don't think we're going to go forward in this relationship. We're going to explore things like, do you want children? We're going to explore things like spiritual compatibility. We're going to explore our approach to finances or our goals or our dreams in life. And all of these is you're really taking a more serious standpoint to go, is this something, where I feel like, yes, you are the person that I want to build my life around. And anywhere along that line, a good friend of mine recently, they got to that point, had some of those in-depth conversations, and they just decided, you know what? It's been a great friendship. We've really got to know each other well, but at this point, let's end the relationship. And at this point, it kind of becomes a bit of a no man's land, because either you end the relationship at that point, or you move to the next stage, which is engaged, where you begin to set in motion the plans around a life together. Things like rings, things like dates, things like plans, things like getting your family involved, some of those things. That is an entirely new set, right? That's an entirely new example. And of course, the last one would be it ending in marriage, or some people, that would be the next thing. So you've got 5 examples. Let me just go over that. One is kind of the idea of playing the field. Number 2 is where it moves into some version of exclusivity. 3 is where you move into serious exploration. 4 is engagement, formal commitment, so to speak, which at some point you could even end there, of course. And 5 is marriage. So none of that's surprising to you. Let's now bring in the tougher question. At what point is it important to have this conversation? Well, let's start at the tail end. I work with guys who never told their spouse before they were married. This came about after they were married and their partner found out about it. And let me just say, there is one word, and that is resentment. The resentment to not know on her part is real and powerful. The feeling of betrayal, because they feel betrayed. They feel like you were dishonest with them. They feel like they never had an opportunity to make a clear, informed decision, because you were presenting a different version. You were curating who you really were, and they didn't have a full, honest view of you. Let me also say this. I've talked to and heard situations where a guy has told his fiance after they were engaged. And that also led to resentment. That led to, okay, let me get this straight. Now that everybody knows, now that there's a date planned, you now expect me to have a real conversation about the viability of our relationship, when all of this social forces and all of this social movement is set in action. That's completely unfair. You have put me in an incredibly awkward place. So you can tell I'm moving it forward. I'm moving it earlier. I think, by and large, the best place for it is when you are at stage 3. I'm going to make an argument for stage 2 as well. But stage 3, where you're saying we are now at a serious place and having serious conversations about exploring the viability of this relationship. And some of that needs to include our sexual history. Again, if sexual history is never talked about, that for me is a danger sign on both parts. If there's so much fear around having difficult conversations because it might somehow make the relationship vulnerable, the relationship might end. If that's the type of relationship that has all that fear, that's another danger sign that this is not a relationship that should go forward. So at that point, that's where I suggest, I've heard relationships even where at the step earlier, exclusive, where and I'm going to give you a link in a podcast. This was to a article in Pure Desire. It's written from how a girl can talk to a guy about his porn history. But even early on, when you're looking at going exclusive, the author in that article says, you know what? It's not a bad idea to put out there, you know what? If our relationship is going to go forward, it's going to be based on honesty. And if we're going to look at this relationship moving forward, I want to talk about our history. I want to talk about what makes us who we are. I want to talk about things that we've done, things, in terms of partners or things we've looked at, recognizing it's just such a common thing out there. And I want to have a full idea of where and who you are. And in the same way, I also want to make myself vulnerable to who I am. So obviously not your first date, not a great conversation. Hi, I'm Vern and I struggle with porn. Probably not a great opening date move. I wouldn't suggest that, but not very far in where you're looking at becoming exclusive or serious. I think that this conversation needs to happen. All right. So let's go to the next one. The what. What sort of and to what degree should you be sharing? It's interesting how there's lots and lots of information that's out there for married couples about how to do a therapeutic disclosure. And I'm also going to put in the show notes a counseling group that's all across North America that does a lot of work around this area. It's connected with Barbara Steffens, who is an earlier guest that I had on the show. But the reality is, in this scenario, what sort of things should you talk about? Well, put yourself in the place of a gal, for example, and your boyfriend, your serious boyfriend, your exclusive boyfriend has just said to you, one of the things that has been part of my journey has been a struggle with my sexuality, with porn, in terms of that. Well, I am going to have questions if I'm the woman in that situation. And I would say vice versa, you would have questions as well. Let me just give a few examples, and then I'm going to share a little bit about how I think this can be done best. But I think there's a few questions that, let's say, a woman might have, a girlfriend might have. In general, where are you going with these activities? For example, have you bordered into illegal activities, underage stuff? Is that something you're attracted to? Where are you at with same-sex attraction or bisexuality? Are you attracted to women, or are you also attracted to men? That's something I would want to know. Do you view or have you viewed violent porn? Here's another one. Have you crossed the flesh line in your online activities? And by that, I don't mean, which I would also ask. The next one is previous relationships around, whether it's massage parlors or prostitutes or just girlfriends that, past sexual partners that we may come across. But I'm talking more about, are you involved with, so many of the websites are about sexting. Are you involved with chatting with real women online? Are you involved in some version of online sexting? All those relationships, which is so common. In other words, are any of these relationships still outgoing? Do you still have conversations continuing with 3, 4, 5 girls or just one girl on a certain app or whatever? Those are hugely important questions that need to be talked about. And those are not invasive questions. Those are simply questions that I think anybody would want to ask to find out, who are you and what is it? What are the sort of things that I would have to deal with if this relationship is going to continue? Now, let's go back to all of those fears, all of those hesitations you have. You might say, well, I don't want to tell you any of that because it might cause you to want to walk away. Well, yeah. Do you want to spend the rest of your life in a place where you're going, gee, I sure hope she doesn't find out? I sure hope she never finds out this about me. Do you want to start your relationship? Do you want to build your relationship with somebody which is completely based on a false image, a false representation of who you are? Wouldn't you rather have somebody who knows you and still loves you and supports you and says, I've got my stuff as well. Let's work on this together. And you start the relationship in a place of honesty and transparency. Now, you might say, well, Vern, you're telling me I should just share everything. No, I'm not saying that either. I'm talking about broad areas. But I would say this. One of the problems I do see guys making is they go, fine, you want to know, then I'm going to back up and I'm going to give you every website I've ever visited. I'm going to give you every chat I've ever had, and I'm going to print that out for you, and you're going to see everything about me. And, I'm going to tell you every fantasy I ever had or every video I ever watched. That is not what I'm talking about. The reality is that there does need to be enough information. And sometimes women will want too much information. They will, in their fear, or they will, in their trepidation, they will want more information than is necessary. Well, I want to see everything. I want to know everywhere you've gone. So you say, well, how do you navigate the differences here? How do you determine what is appropriate to share and what is not appropriate to share? And I would say that is where a great counselor who's been trained in some of the disclosure stuff will be absolutely crucial. Say, you know what? I really want to talk to you about this. But, using an example of a nuclear reaction, I'm not sure I'm going to do this right. It's such a volatile thing. To be honest, I've got a lot of shame about it. I'm not proud of everything I've done or every place I've been or everywhere I've looked. And I would like us to do it properly. So a good counselor can help you determine what is necessary to know, and will also give me the security and help me be able to share what is needed for us to decide whether or not we should move forward in this relationship. And again, I'll put a link in the show notes for a group of counselors that can help with that as well. And I would say if, for example, your girlfriend or something didn't want to go through a process like that, that would also, no, I just tell me everything. I don't want to talk to anybody. I want you to tell me everything. I would also see that as a bit of a red flag, because that may mean that they're not willing to get help or support that's needed for whatever future issues come up in your relationship. So, summarize. Honesty is the best policy. Do not let those lies in your head, those fears, those rationalizations put you off. It's not appropriate at the earliest stages, but it's certainly not something you should hide. And if it's done properly, can really help your girlfriend or becoming, help her really decide, do I have the faith and grace to walk with this guy, considering I'm also a broken person, to create a new life together? Or you can simply make the thing, I'm going to hide this. I'm going to pretend to be somebody I'm not. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to move past something which continually wants to resurface in my life. And that sounds like holding a beach ball under the water. That sounds exhausting and something I certainly wouldn't want to live with, and I'm sure you wouldn't as well. So there's some ideas. If you want to ask me more questions, again, reach out to me, bandofbrothers.care @gmail.com. I'd love to chat more with you about that. So that's my best thoughts on dating honesty, when, why, and how. We'll see you next time.